2,000 years ago, when this poor young Jewish couple made their way to the temple in Jerusalem with their young baby, how happy an event that must have been for them. Now, this is exactly 40 days after the birth of their son, and in keeping with their faith, this visit was a solemn time for cleansing and for dedication, taking your child to the temple. They came to this holiest place on earth, the temple, a place clothed with prayer and with devotion, to offer their praise and their sacrifice, 2 small birds, as tokens of thanksgiving for their gift. And because the gift of Jesus was not only given to Joseph and Mary, but to all humanity, you and I mark this event with today's celebration called the Feast of the Presentation. In the Episcopal Church, when a mother has given birth and for the first time comes to church, we call it the churching of the woman. And we usually bring the baby, and we have a prayer or two that we say at that time. At the heart of this idea of presentation, of giving ourselves to God in thanksgiving, is a yearning to be cleansed, to be accepted, to be okay with God. Human hearts are like that. That which is deepest within us wants acceptance, wants peace. We want contentment and the things that undergird that, truth and honesty and justice. We want that to rule our hearts. This is how God has made us. This is how we live our best lives. And this is what has made this week's impeachment hearings and the long trail that's gotten us this far so upsetting. There is grave concern over the movement we have made from this soul contentment that you and I and everyone else so deeply yearn for. In America today, there is widespread dissatisfaction, anger, fear. Our souls are troubled. Our nation's soul is troubled. We're troubled with the possibility that our great experiment in democracy, with its checks and balances, divisions of power, rule of law, may crash. We are seeing fierce division and bad behavior that many of us fear is a precursor to such a disaster. We Americans hold dear certain virtues and convictions about the plain nature of truth-telling. We like to see our lawyers, our judges, our politicians unbiased, fair, under the law, above reproach. Yet there's grave distrust on this fundamental and foundational conviction. We Americans like to see elections won and laws passed on merit and not money. We loathe the idea that the truth is up for sale. And there is grave distrust here. We see too many people acting out of self-interest and not communal good. Fear, not trust. Anger, not respect. Hatred, not love. Thus we see the divide widening when we witness the truth not being decided by what's right or wrong, but by which political party is in power. And we fear that corruption on a small scale may grow into something large scale, something beyond our control, something that may take away our freedom and liberty, God's essential gift to unlocking human potential. This worry and this fear tempts you and me, my brothers and sisters of good faith, to lose our faith. We see ourselves losing faith when we start imitating the very behaviors that we despise. We see ourselves losing faith when we see disrespect of an opponent, and then we disrespect our opponent. We see ourselves losing faith when we see the mocking and belittling of the opposition, and then we mock and belittle our opposition. We see ourselves losing faith when we see an unwillingness to listen to the other side, and then we don't listen to the other side. We see ourselves losing faith when we see people who cut off relationships with their opponents, and we go ahead and cut off relationships with those with whom we are in opposition. Oh yes, the temptation is so strong not to turn the other cheek. So what are we supposed to do? Well, we're supposed to act like Anna and Simeon. We see that most people, and see that what most people are not seeing. Anna and Simeon saw what most people did not see. In our gospel story, when we met Anna and Simeon, they're the ones who spent their days and nights in devotion to God, praying in earnest expectation that God would save the day, and then God sent Jesus, and God did save the day. And Anna and Simeon were the ones who saw that. Anna and Simeon saw what most people didn't see. And we're supposed to do the same thing. We're supposed to see that listening to our opponents is the first step towards peace. We're to see that respecting those who oppose us, disputing policy, not personality, frees up a log jam. We're to see that loving our enemy is the only way to make them a friend. As Dr. King so prosaically said, the only way to make an enemy a friend is to love them. Oh, well, we may say, if I do that, my opponent will just take advantage of me. I'll be weak, and now win the argument. That may be true. But when we lower ourselves to meet our opponents at the place of deception, corruption, deceit, disrespect, and hatred, we may very well win the argument, but we will have lost our souls. We may fairly say that today the soul of our nation is at stake. We know the outward and visible forms of divisions and tensions that we're facing. They're political, they're social, they're ideological. But what isn't seen, what Anna and Simeon saw, is a deeper and invisible cause that is spiritual and that is moral. And when self-interest and individualism is treasured more than sacrifice for the common good, the soul of the nation is at stake. When truth is publicly twisted and manipulated, the soul of the nation is at stake. When dirty politics manipulates our shared convictions of truth, the soul of the nation is at stake. When fear and hatred play such exalted roles in shaping politics, when bullying governs our speech, when selfishness so blatantly and profoundly shapes our public intentions and interactions, the soul of the nation is at stake. There are a lot of people who are sick and tired of bickering and sorely want to go high when everyone else goes low. And that takes hard work. That takes sacrifice. And sacrifice is what God is asking us to do. And any good Jew will tell us that sacrifice starts at the temple. Anna and Simeon remind us that the solutions we seek, the strengthening of our nation's soul that we are all called to do, is not found in backroom political strategizing and shady deal-making, but it's found in the temple, in prayer and in devotion to Jesus, who is the only way out of this. Again, Dr. Martin Luther King's strength came from the temple. While he knew fear, he knew peril, he knew defeat. He kept on fighting those unseen powers of hatred and fear with the very public acts of love and faith. What do those public acts look like for you and me today? He knew that those powers that he was up against, and he truly believed that Jesus would win out. He famously said this, "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil, triumphant." Friends, we're called to fight, but not necessarily in the worldly way. We are called to take action, not necessarily in the worldly way. For we know our fight is not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities of the air, that will be won not with earthly tactics, but with godly faith. What does that mean in your life as a Christian, as a citizen? And this is what we're called to cultivate as Anna and Simeon did, by living in the temple, being a people of prayer and devotion and godly habits. For our best public witness begins with private prayer. Yes, our souls are troubled. Our nation's soul is troubled. And God is not unaware. God has sent us the answer in Jesus, who knows that we stand tallest when we're on our knees, that we lead best when we're last, and we get the most when we lose it all. May God remind us that the way to the public square is always through our private prayer closet, where we carry on in faith, that our good works do not go unseen, and our faith in the ultimate triumph of goodwill one day will hear us join that heavenly chorus. My eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in all the presence of peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, and for glory to your people Israel. Amen.